So we're at the Ebenezer Fisk House site, and we're going to talk with Jared Foose, Park Ranger at Minuteman National Park, for a little bit about it.
Yeah, so this is the backside of Fisk Hill. It's the easternmost section of Minuteman National Historical Park. And this is the location of some heavy fighting on April 19th, 1775 during the British retreat back towards Boston later in the afternoon. And the really fascinating thing about this site in particular is that we have multiple stories and artifacts and things that came from the individuals that fought across this landscape. And the area behind us here was the Ebenezer Fisk house itself. It's no longer there, unfortunately. The foundation still remains today. But the Fisk family lived here during the time of the battle, and Ebenezer Fisk himself was bedridden. So first thing in the morning, when the British troops started marching towards Concord, the Fisk family decided they were going to stay in the Ebenezer Fisk house because they were afraid of moving the elder Ebenezer. However, as the fighting started getting closer on April 19th, the family decided it was time to go. And Ebenezer and his son, Benjamin Fisk, and his daughter-in-law, Rebecca Fisk, actually decided to load Ebenezer into an ox cart, and they flee to another house further away from the road itself and further away, hopefully, from the fighting. Unfortunately, even though they fled away from the road, they were still in the midst of the whirlwind that came off of Fisk Hill later that afternoon. British soldiers come rushing down the backside of Fisk Hill, followed closely by colonial militia, attacking them in flank and rear the entire way. And the incredible thing is that Rebecca Fisk actually leaves an account about this entire experience. She was 27 years old at the time of the battle when she fled, and she was watching from a distance the fighting that swept over Fisk Hill, and she talked about those British soldiers retreating and fighting a rearguard action all the way away. And then she also talked about, after the guns had fallen silent, coming back to her home and the incredible devastation that she found in and around the area. She said that her garden had been completely trampled, all the flowers destroyed. But then, when she walked inside her front parlor, what did she find but horribly wounded soldiers left behind after the fighting? A number of British soldiers, she recalled, lying in puddles of their own blood, wallowing in misery after being horribly wounded here. But she also found another young man, a young militia soldier who had been grievously wounded here outside of the Fisk house. So yeah, that soldier, that young militia soldier that Rebecca Fisk came back home to find horribly wounded in her front parlor was none other than a young man named James Hayward of Acton. And as the years went past, the story of what happened to James Hayward started to become kind of a legend in the area of Lexington and Concord and this region. And as you can see, there's a monument here along the original Battle Road Trail. This monument was put up in the late 19th century to mark the spot where Hayward was mortally wounded. As the story goes, he was supposedly getting a drink from this well when he turned around to see a British soldier exiting out of the Fisk house. Both men, only a rod or about 16 feet apart, leveled their guns and fired at each other. The British soldier was killed instantly. Rebecca Fisk actually talked about coming home and finding that British soldier lying dead on her doorstep, his blood still trickling down over the stone. James Hayward was also shot. He was mortally wounded and then taken into the house where he died later that evening.
So he was shot through his powder horn, and the powder horn survives. It's in the collection of the Acton Memorial Library, donated by the family years ago. And it has a bullet hole entrance and a bullet hole exit. And it sent the ball with shards of powder horn into his side. So we know that he was shot through the horn. The horn survives. Now we're going to move off to Lexington.
So we're at Monroe Tavern, owned by the Lexington Historical Society. And today, Chris Kaufman's going to tell us something about this great document that's on the table.
So we have Dr. Fisk's bill here. He was a doctor in Lexington. And on it, he notes several British troops that he treated in the days following the battle on April 19, 1775. We know that he travels to Woburn to treat some troops. We know he treats at least 7 British troops at Buckman Tavern, but we also know he goes to the Fisk home and treats 3 wounded British soldiers in their home as well.
So we're at Monroe Tavern with Stacy Frazier, curator of collections here. Tell us about this.
Well, this is an object that is kind of hard to tell what it is upside down, which is how we have it. But if you can imagine this, flip the other way with this square part at the top and the pump handle and a faucet here. This was the pump that was on the site of the well on the Fisk property where the fight that we've been talking about happened. It was something that had been in our collection for a long time. We kind of identified it about 10 years ago with Joel's help as this particular pump. We've matched it up to the photographs of the pump when it was on location. And when we think about it in context with the powder horn and the other items, that idea of kind of everything, these objects were in the same space at the same time while this moment was happening. And it's pretty amazing to look, the fact that the pump's still here, it's an old wooden well pump. It's not something that necessarily you'd save in the same way you'd save, your grandfather's powder horn. So the fact that we have it, the fact that the park, interprets the site, it's a wonderful connection.